On Monday, the InSight spacecraft was placed atop the Atlas V rocket in preparation for its trip to Mars. I'm Zach, this is ZakDTV, and today we're going to talk about that. InSight, or Interior Exploration Using Seismic Investigations, Geodesy, and Heat Transport, is NASA's newest mission to Mars, with a goal of finding out what is happening underneath the crust of the red planet. The launch window for this craft opens on May 5th and runs through till June 8th. At some point in that time, this Atlas V rocket will launch and begin InSight's 6-month journey to Mars. And even though the launch date is variable, the landing date is not. This is going to reach Mars on the 26th of November this year. This mission is comprised of 2 separate experiments, the first being MARCO, or the Mars Cube 1 experiment. This is made up of 2 cubesats known as MARCO A and MARCO B, but to the team who designed them, they're known as Wally and Eva. Here in Earth's orbit, cubesats have been found to be a priceless addition to our satellite fleet. What started out as experiments for school children has really become a huge industry. While the goal of the MARCO experiment is to carry these 2 cubesats further out into space than any have ever been before. The whole purpose is to see if a CubeSat can stay alive over a 6-month journey deeper into space. The hope for this mission is that these 2 CubeSats can survive the flight to Mars. They'll then follow the InSight spacecraft and beam back information as the InSight lander touches down on Mars. Now, if the program is a failure, it's not a big deal. They aren't the only communication satellites that'll be there. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter will be in position above the landing site in order to transmit a signal to let NASA know if the lander got there okay. The MARCO mission is just to see if they'll work. If they do work, they're not going to stay in an orbit around Mars. They are going to end up in an orbit that takes them around the sun. Basically, after that, they're kind of throwaway. There's not really much use for them anymore. But it will have proven that CubeSats can be a viable means of communication deeper out in our solar system, and maybe even beyond. The second part of this mission is the InSight lander, which is slated to land at the Elysium Planitia. Researchers believe that will be the perfect place to land this craft to do the experiments they plan on doing. This lander represents an international group effort to build the 3 main tools that are on board. The first tool is the Seismic Experiment for Interior Structure, and it was provided by the French Space Agency and the people they were working with. This will be the first seismometer ever placed directly on the surface of Mars, and it's intended to monitor the red planet for seismic activity, Mars quakes if you will as meteor impacts. I mean, it's pretty obvious that Mars was seismically active at one point. I mean, you have things like Olympus Mons, the tallest known volcano in our solar system. And researchers really want to get a feel for what Mars is like now, if our future settlers will be dealing with earthquakes all the time or not. The second experiment on board is the Heat Flow and Physical Properties Package, or HP Cubed, which was provided by the German Space Agency and their partners. The HP-3 is designed to be what they call a self-hammering mole. Basically, it's a long probe that will hammer itself down into the ground. They plan on it sinking itself up to 5 meters deep, but this is going to take more than 3 weeks. Hopefully, with this device, they'll be able to find out how hot the interior of Mars is to give them a better idea of what's actually going on under the surface. And the final tool aboard this is the RISE, or Rotation and Interior Structure Experiment. This experiment is focused on tracking the rotation and the wobble of the planet Mars. By combining that information and the information taken from the other 2 sensors, researchers believe they'll be able to tell what the core of the red planet is made of. Is it a solid or is it a liquid? Is it heavy or is it light? This information isn't just necessary to colonize Mars, but it'll also give us a better idea about the formation of the rest of the terrestrial planets here in our solar system. There's a lot of knowledge that can be picked up from just this little bit of information. Now, in the first week after landing, InSight's really not going to be doing much except just surveying the land around it and sending back information about where it's landed. It will also survey the area as far out as a robotic arm can reach and send back 3D images of that area to the crew back here on Earth. Once the crew back here on Earth picks out the proper locations for the seismometer and the heat probe, the robotic arm will get to work on placing these instruments where they're supposed to be. First off the lander is going to be the seismometer, and they are scheduling several days to make this happen because it's the first time a robotic arm has ever gripped anything on another planet. They want to make sure it has a good grip, it's not going to slip out, the placement's right, blah, 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 because you only get one shot at this, right? The second thing to be deployed is going to be the HP-3, which again, they're looking at like a week just to get it off the lander and into the ground. And like I said before, then they expect more than 3 weeks to get it down to its 5-meter depth. Yeah, you know what they say, slow and steady wins the race. And in a situation like this, there's no room for a mistake. It's not like there's someone there who could just reset the process for them, right? So basically, once all that's set up, there's no real need for command anymore. This probe will just sit there and suck up information and beam it back to Earth twice a day for the duration of its mission, which as of right now is scheduled to be 708 sols. That's a little over a year in Mars time and somewhere around 2 years in our time. It actually comes out to 728 days. We don't know if it'll stay up and running the whole time, but a lot of our other things on Mars way exceeded their expectations. So hopefully this will too. So now I want to throw this to you. What do you think? Should we be spending so much time and effort into the colonization of Mars, or should we be focused closer to home at this point? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to click that like button and subscribe so you know when I put out something new. My videos are out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so I do hope to see you here again soon. And until the next time, just have fun and be safe.